First to thank Hans and go to the very kind invitation to speak at this conference, but I must say I've been given a very difficult task. I've been asked to talk on this question, is the existence of the state proof of market failure? Now the difficulty of this task is this: suppose one sets out an argument this way. We have the first premise, the state exists, and the conclusion is the market has failed. It isn't immediately obvious how one's supposed to get from the premise, the state exists, to the conclusion. There doesn't seem to be any argument present. So what one has to do then is to try to construct an argument from the premise. We have to add additional premises to get us from the initial premise, the state exists, the conclusion, the market has failed, in then trying to evaluate the soundness and validity of the argument. But in order to do so, how could there be the conflict between the state and market? One has to understand the market in the sense of the private property anarchism, say, is almost able to defend by or Hans-Hermann, because otherwise, if it just took market in a more limited sense, there wouldn't be any existence of the state wouldn't find any conflict with, say, more limited market. Why those two, the existence of the state shows, say, that a more limited market could exist. So we have to ask, does the existence of the state show that anarchism has failed? I think in one way, it isn't that the market is some good that people want. It is the things that are bound to be good, people want that. Anarchism could produce a use in the institution under creation. People constantly have that in a market anarchist society. That's a very moral failure. But could there be a market failure that the market could produce things that would be reasonable for people to want? Reasonable design those that don't come in conflict and push them out. So the state claims confidence that there were people in a non-state world couldn't produce sense of residents or hunger. Are there two goods that people couldn't achieve the market goals? That's why it's failed. Or just other thing. Someone said, well, if society were vital, wouldn't expect there to be a lot of some existence. So it doesn't have any society such as but it does have for many of them when we have confidence. It does show that the market's failed. I don't think that would really work. In order to show the failure of that situation where people wanted to have more society, the jury law, and they were able to achieve that, so they found that time to do this in order to result in the way as they wanted. And the fact that there have been very many anarchist societies would show by itself that the market's failed. So there have been two main attempts on two points that try to show that there could be a property society. First, I say much that it's one of the concepts in his thought is that so-called public goods, that's a public goods on the characterized by trades, supplies, and other markets, and this is can be people architecture that and there's very nice stability. So that the doesn't exist, public goods show we have a state. Now, I recommend that in the first chapter of the undergoing concept.com shoot that question shows this as being best to my feelings. What public good show, the valid show, this valid show that markets isn't producing the optimum amount of public good. The art isn't produce all that amount. Now, the problem with this is hard to say is that there's no idea systems not allowed to get better than market on this. There's very little the whole operation of that issue, what not in my is, so it's not really some point. But other countries are slightly more serious argument against the possibility of a market. And sometimes given the robotics rate of several anarchist states. So the first part of that book is really was kind of tied to Murray Rothbard. His argument I think is a very good one. He writes this, he assumes the kind of condition Rothbard set out people have individual rights and everyone has the right to protect himself from protection agency. But he said if we had this initial state, then people would find it in their interest to establish something like a state, and in doing so they wouldn't violate any rights or ethical constraint. So what he's saying is that the market anarchist system is really self-undermining. If you start with it, you would come up with a state. Now his argument really has three stages. The first of these is, he said, well, supposing you start off with people formed as a protection agency, said, well, wouldn't you want your protection agency, if it came into conflict with a different agency, you want your agency to win the conflict. So if an agency were more successful than others in winning such conflict, people would tend to gravitate toward that agency. Then the fact that that agency got more customers would mean that people would be more attracted, maybe stronger to maybe more attracted to that agency. So continuing kind of spiraling process, and that dominant what's called the dominant protection agency. So you would have really one, rather than if you start off with a number of different protection agencies, you have one that was really the main protection agency in society. But of course, so far, we don't have anything like the state. We just have an agency that a lot of people, or most people, subscribe to. That's perfectly consistent with the free market anarchism. The free market anarchism doesn't say you have to have a whole lot of different agencies with roughly equal number of subscribers. But note it goes on from there. He said, well, he's concerned with a particular type situation, which is this: supposing certain punishments that an agency might impose on people will make people fearful, I'd say, especially ones that threaten bodily injury or death. Someone was telling me that when you go to Malaysia, they tell you when getting off the plane, if you smuggle drugs in this country, the penalty is death. Well, if somebody had, if you thought that you were going to be accused of having drugs in Malaysia, you'd be very fearful. So it would be very important to you not to be tried by a risky, what the procedure considered risky. If you were in that country, you'd be afraid of that, because even if, say, if you were innocent of the charge and were tried by a really risky procedure, you'd be killed. And then, so he knows he's very concerned with situations where people have risks imposed on them by fear imposed on them, like risky decision procedures. So he said, well, the dominant agency can prohibit all the other agencies from imposing this kind of risky decision procedures on its clients, and say, no, you can't do that. We're going to stop you if you try to do this, and if you do it, we're able to do it, since we're the strongest agency, we can stop you from doing that. So by doing this, by being in that position, the dominant agency is then the final arbiter of what the acceptable procedures are for justice in society. So it's taken on a state-like function. So it's transformed that from the dominant agency into the ultra-minimal state. It's gone from the dominant agency to the ultra-minimal state. But as notes are recognized, we still don't have a state so far. So far, we have just people who are paying clients of the dominant agency. So even if the dominant agency is doing this to restricting all the other agencies, it is still just paying clients. So that really isn't like a state at all. A state is really providing justice and protection. Everyone lives within its jurisdiction. At least most states do that. The ultra-minimal state isn't doing that, but knows it with characteristic ingenuity. Said, well, in this situation where the state has prohibited the clients of these other agencies from imposing risky decision procedures on its clients, it's disadvantaged them. They haven't done anything wrong, but it's just said you can't protect yourself in this way. So since it's disadvantaged them in things, the dominant agency has to offer those people who's prohibited protection services of its own, making them available either at a very low price or free. So by by doing that, it's transformed itself from the ultra-minimal state to the minimal state, and then notice that it's fulfilled all really the requirements of the state. It's the only agency that has final say over protection services within the territory, and it's providing services to everyone within the territory. If it's prohibited anyone from protecting himself, it's offering a public policy. Now, I think the book is one of the major works. Mine is much better than the one that it is replying to the second one, famous for 1971 by Rawls for Justice. And there are great things in the book. My favorite line in the book is what he says about criticizing tacit consent. He said, tacit consent isn't worth the paper it's not written on. But I think there are substantial problems with all the argument. I think about the 3 minutes I have left, I'll just try to indicate a few of these. One is, there's, in the first part of the argument, he said there's a, he says there's this tendency, spiral tendency to monopoly. Now, I don't think that's really right, because it isn't clear why just having more clients would make the agency stronger necessarily. Suppose he is right, then the problem is this: he's postulating ever-increasing spiral intensity toward monopoly. People will keep being attracted more and more to this dominant agency and keep getting more and more clients. But he needs it to be the case that this process stops somewhere, that not everybody joins the dominant agency. Because if that happened, that everybody would just be a client of the dominant agency, we wouldn't have a state at all. We just have a single agency with always with everyone voluntarily need to be a client. He needs people to be out of the agency, so the agency can then prohibit them from applying risk and decision procedures, and then go on to proceed to offer them the low-paid, free protection service. Otherwise, we don't have a state. So he's really arguing against himself. There's this tendency for the state to become more attractive to the but he stops somewhere. Now, there's this case of this fear by certain kinds of punishments, and accordingly the fear of risk and decision would apply only in very few cases, and most punishments don't even involve death or physical injury. So it's not clear that the state would be able, the dominant agency, be able to stop any of these other, the non-dominant agency from doing anything else. Might be able to stop them from right about these things to decisions. Here, might be able to stop. Also, wouldn't be able to stop, and also wouldn't be able to stop these agencies from, say, trying with clients where they only come to is a fine or prison, because then this would be compensated if it were found they wasn't guilty. We wouldn't induce the kind of fear that no one is concerned. And then final criticism, and then important, is that even if those were also argument, it really still wouldn't be a state because it lacks altogether power of taxation. Remember, the minimum state being funded by the contributions of people who buy the services, and the state providing these coverage services equivalent to impulsive decisions with no taxation at all in those states. So it's a question of the state at all. So I think this is, I think is the challenge to the market anarchist system. I think is the strongest. I think that one failed. So I think that in conclusion, we have good reason to answer the question: does the existence of the state prove that market failure? We have good reason to answer no, even in the sense that taking what we're interested in is where we're considering only goods that are somehow ethically all right. So even in this stronger sense, the existence of the state doesn't show the market's failure. Thank you.
break, and then we meet at 6 for questions and answers, and then you are all free.